Hi everyone, welcome today. We're super excited about this First Timers Night In. For those of you who are tuning in, as with live video and live streaming, we did have some technical issues at 7 o'clock. But that being said, thank you. Thank you to everyone who is on with us today. We promise you this will not be your typical Zoom Brady Bunch meeting. This is going to be a conversation with experts in the field of real estate who have all bought homes. So not only are we realtors, but we have been first-time home buyers. Myself, my name is Ravi Singh. I'm a realtor with Connexus Group at Remax Hallmark, and I'm very excited to be doing this today with my colleagues. Alicia is here. She's manning the chat, and Shant, a big thank you to you for manning the tech. Today I have Sabrina, Justin, and Ashley as, for lack of a better word, my guests. I'm going to be asking them the questions that you're asking us, and I'm going to facilitate a conversation today about buying your first home. Buying your first home is, we can all agree it's a nervous experience, right? It's a lot of money. It's probably the most amount of money that anybody spends the first time until you buy your second home. And you know what? I'm sure the people tuning in today will have questions. For those of you who have questions, and I see Marlon, you've already written, Karen, hello to you as well, write them in, and intermittently throughout the content that we're producing, Alicia will reach out to us with those questions and we'll do our best to answer them. With live video, I just want to preface this, anything can happen. So, if it shuts down, we promise to get back up and running. If you get kicked out, we promise to do our best to get you back in. But with that being said, we're going to get started. So, we're going to do introductions. Sabrina, you can introduce yourself. Tell us how long you've been selling real estate.
I've been selling real estate for about 5 years now.
Thank you. And Sabrina's our newest member to the Connexus Group. She comes from a small boutique brokerage, and we're certainly very happy to have you. Justin, a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Justin. I've been in the business for about 11 years now. Yeah.
Justin actually bought his first home with his family at 18. And we're going to talk about his journey as a real estate buyer, as well as his journey as a realtor. And Ashley.
I'm Ashley, and I've been selling real estate for about 5-6 years now.
And Ashley has experience working in the real estate industry from different aspects, including working with a builder. Sabrina, she's worked in mortgages. And interesting fun fact, all of us have at different times worked in hospitality. So, you know what, we've got a colorful past, and we're going to dig into some of the things that I think are worth talking about. So, Sabrina,
Yes.
tell us how long ago did you buy your first home?
Right before I got into real estate, right before I became a realtor, so about 6 years ago.
6 years ago. And if you don't mind, can you share with us the purchase price?
$345,000.
$345. And when you bought it for $345, how much actual money of your own did you put in as a down payment?
5%, so it's about 17,500.
Good. The reason why I'm asking this is I want to illustrate the principle of leverage. With 5% of the purchase price, you can purchase 100% of the purchase price. So 17,000 allows you to buy a property for
345.
$345. Now, where was the property?
Barry.
Good. Now, Sabrina, that was an investment property, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. And we're going to get into some of the details of that journey. But just to be clear, purchase for $345, how many years ago?
About 5.5 years ago.
About 5.5 years ago, so let's say 2015.
Yeah.
What's the market value today?
Say about 550, 560.
So in 5 years, you've gained $200,000 in positive appreciation, and you would have paid down an amount on your mortgage.
Yeah.
So that 17,000 in theory has become north of 230,000 in a journey of 5 years. And guys, that equity cannot be achieved through renting, and it really cannot be achieved with any other investment instrument other than your property. So Justin, how old were you when you bought your first home?
I was 18 when I invested in my first piece of real estate.
And that wasn't a home that you moved into.
No.
That was an investment property.
It was.
Can you share with us that process?
So actually, I did this with my mom's friends. So there was about 4 other people involved in the transaction. So the purchase price was about 250,000 at the time, and we needed to put 20% down, which would equal to 50,000. So there was 5 partners. So each one of the partners put down 5,000 to buy this property.
And just to share with you, one thing that I respect about Justin's journey is what you can't do on your own, you can do if you partner with other folks.
For sure.
So sometimes climbing the property ladder is not just buying a home to live in, but maybe as an 18-year-old, you start partnering up with a couple people, you buy something so that when it's time to buy a home, you've actually started further along the property ladder. Justin, when did you buy the condo that you live in now?
I bought that about 2.5 years ago.
Right, and how
Almost.
much? And just curious, earning income as a realtor, but did you have other equity from the other properties that you were able to use towards that condo?
I was for sure. Well, that condo, we rented it out once it was completed for 2 years. And then once we rented it out for 2 years, we sold it. So my $10,000 investment, once we sold it, I got back, I netted about 22,000 after. So I did a little bit more than double what I invested in. But yeah, I was able to kind of snowball that money and make other investments, including my own property that I live in right now.
Good. Now, Ashley, how many years ago did you buy your first home?
In 2009.
Good.
It's about
So
11 years.
11 years,
Mhm.
right? And at that time, do you remember the purchase price?
It was 261
Funny thing
in
is,
Toronto.
anybody who you ask if they remember the purchase price of their first home, they always remember. They remember exactly what
The
they signed.
cent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's 261.
261.
And just what was the property?
It was a condo in Regent Park,
Yeah.
and it was a brand new condo. Nobody had lived there, but it wasn't. I didn't buy it from the builder. It was from
From a seller.
the seller.
Good. So it was a
Yeah.
resale condo,
Resale. Mhm.
but it was brand new, probably just registered.
Yeah.
Right. And it was 261. And how much did you have to put down on that?
5%.
Which roughly is, help me out guys, about
261,
13,000.
13,000.
Yeah.
13,000. So again, the leverage principle, just so everyone's clear, you're buying a home for 261,000 and you're using 5% or 13,000 as a down payment. We will get to closing costs as well, and we'll talk about the other costs involved with buying a home. But for the illustration of leverage, it's 5% as a minimum on any purchase south of 500,000. When you get over 500,000, yes, there's further down payment requirements, and we'll talk more about that as well. But if you're buying a home for 400,000, you only need 20,000 as a down payment. All right. And I'll just share with you, I was 29 years old. Sorry, I was 30 years old. I had just proposed to my long-term girlfriend, and that February, we drove by and found a property close to where her family grew up, and it was $414,000. Interestingly, she thought I didn't negotiate hard enough. She's a tough negotiator. But we bought it with our savings from our RSPs. We had collectively enough for a 5% down payment. We had withdrawn everything I had in my RSP as well as everything she had in hers. And we're very grateful we did that. That was tax exempt and penalty exempt, and we'll talk more about that. And today, actually, kid you not, today, the house 3 doors down came out on the market for $938. So I think the illustration of leverage is very hard to see any other opportunity like this,
For sure.
where you can buy property with minimum down payment requirements, purchase with leverage, recognize equity, and then increase your principal pay down on the mortgage as well. The other thing that's interesting is sometimes you can take that equity and borrow it. and use it to buy a second property. And that we will get to when we talk about Pre-Con 101 and Get Rich Slow, which are our second two events. But today we're focused on buying that first home. So if anybody has questions about leverage, feel free to write them and ask. But in the meantime, we're just going to go on to some of the other parts of the process. So with regards to the team, and I'm going to start with Ashley. You said, okay, I want to buy a condo, I want to buy something in the city, and we know that you were living with your dad, which was out east in Bowmanville, wanted to get back into the city. Who did you call?
Actually, I called an agent that works in our office.
Good. And Mikey, if you're watching, we know you're a great
Shout out
agent.
to Mikey.
So you called an agent,
Yeah.
right? And that was the first call you did.
And he put me in contact with a mortgage broker to get me pre-approved.
Good. So if you're making a checklist of the team and the people that you're involved with, first you have your agent, then you have your mortgage broker. Now, you said pre-approved. So what was that process like?
Well, it was kind of difficult for me because I was in the service industry. I was making cash money.
Yeah.
I had to get an employment letter, credit report.
Yeah. And then they gave you sort of a budget, right?
Yes.
Good. So, one thing I want to illustrate is the first person people usually call is the realtor, right? So when you call the realtor will usually, take sort of the initial consult and say, okay, you're looking for this, you're looking for that. And then the second part of the team is the budgeting. And the budgeting is put in the hands of a mortgage professional, right? Now you mentioned you had some cash income, right? And by the way, so did I when I bought my first home. I think probably all of us,
All of us did.
right? And one of the questions that comes up is, well, should I go with a mortgage broker or should I go with a traditional bank? And Sabrina, I know we were talking a little bit about that. What are your thoughts on that? Just touching on it from a banking background.
When you go to a bank, you're stuck just working with that one bank. Where you go to a mortgage broker, they can find you a bunch of different banks that you qualify with.
Yes.
Instead of having inquiries with a bunch of different banks, just like a one-stop shop. They'll get it done for you.
Yeah, and you know what? We've got some great folks at banks. Edward the Banker on Instagram, or the Rami Ibrahim on Instagram.
Hey, Rami.
TD and CIBC, some great folks. We've also got some fantastic brokers, and we're very close to the leadership at CLC, Capital Lending Center, and we're very grateful for those relationships. Good realtor should put you in touch with a good mortgage broker or good mortgage agent or good mortgage professional. So when you, just going back to your story, Ash, so you had the pre-approval. Now, did you have to get a cosigner, guarantor, or any other sort of purchaser to add to buying that?
I didn't at that time, but the rules have changed now.
Yeah.
They've tightened up a bit.
So guys, two things that you should know. The prices have shot up, and the rules around buying and mortgages have tightened up, all right? So, make sure that pre-approval is nice and tight and nice and strong too. So, you didn't need a guarantor, you didn't need a cosigner, and you had your pre-approval, which basically said, okay, I've looked at your income, I've looked at your credit, you can buy this. And then you and your agent, what was the next step?
We went out and we looked at a few properties.
Now, I know Ashley well. So how many properties did you look at, Ash?
I think 3.
3. And after seeing those 3, what happened?
I wanted to put an offer in on one, but one was sold conditionally.
Okay.
And so I bought the next one.
Ashley's what you call your ideal client as a realtor. 3 homes and
It's
an
the
offer.
real life house hunters episode. Doesn't always happen that easily.
So you looked at 3 homes, right? And the first one that you said, okay, this is it. You wanted to submit an offer, but it was sold?
It was conditionally sold, and it went through, so.
Yeah, so one of the things that you can learn from this, guys, is timing is so important. And your realtor should be readily available to pounce on your behalf, because what you're looking at today, someone could have been looking at yesterday or the day before. So be fast, all right? And if you're making notes, being fast is very important, all right?
Devin's asking, what should I look for when screening a mortgage broker?
Oh, great question. Who wants to field that one? What should you look for when screening a mortgage broker?
Someone available, it's gonna
Yeah.
answer your calls right away.
Yeah.
Um,
Availability is important. What else?
Honesty is very important. You should be able to talk to your mortgage broker honestly and trust that they will give you the right information or guide you the right way for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll share with something. So, you know, guys, one thing I want to advise is be very transparent with your mortgage professional.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We were talking about this yesterday.
Yeah.
Sometimes you kind of hold your information really tight, and they say to you, "How much money do you make?" Simple question. You say, "Oh, I make 65,000," and then when it comes time to take a look at what you declared as your income on your T4 or your NOA, it's 12,000 because a lot of it was cash or vice versa.
Mhm.
So, you know, just be very transparent. I'll add that a good mortgage broker should come as a referral. All right, I'm very big on referrals. I think our whole book of business is pretty much referral. When you vet your realtor or vet your mortgage broker, do yourself a favor, get references. Make sure you know that that person can execute. And I hate to say it, but like any industry, there's fantastic mortgage brokers. And like any industry, there's horrible mortgage brokers.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure whoever you're working with comes with references, comes with referrals. We get a lot of people who cold call us saying, "Oh, I can, you know, do creative financing, or I can do this, or I can do that." Just make sure whoever you're working with, like Sabrina said, readily available. Like Justin said, very honest, high level of competence. And then don't get the bank branch person. Why I say that, guys, is if you have a specialist, they're good at their job. If you have a generalist, they're pretty okay at everything. So, for example, if you talk to a banker that says, "Yeah, I do mortgages, and I do investments, and I do GICs, and I do estate planning," that person doesn't know the nitty-gritty of the mortgages. I'll share with you guys a interesting story. And by the way, there's going to be a lot of stories today. So, young couple, they go to, in this case, the IBC to go buy a property. They get their mortgage approval and they say, "Wow, so-and-so's great. Like, you know, they said we can buy this and this." But that person didn't do enough scrutinizing of their qualification, and he hadn't actually looked deeply into the credit of the guy in the relationship. That guy, his ex-girlfriend, had racked up 3 credit cards that he was unaware of, that he had a bunch of R9s on, and it really put them in a hot place when it came time to getting financing. So, you know, that banker, he was filling out the form, but a mortgage agent probably would have been just a little bit deeper in, right? Okay, Ash, so we're going back to 2009, and you see 3 homes. One's gone, 2 are left, and you offer on the 3rd one. Were you in multiple offers?
No,
So it was just you.
just me.
Good. So guys, when you get to the property after you've done the showings, after you've done the mortgage pre-approval, after you've seen enough homes that you feel confident about what you're buying, the next step is an offer. All right. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about offers, but we're going to get to some questions first, and then we're going to dig into offers.
Okay, Milia is asking, how long am I locked in with the same mortgage broker? And if I submitted my information to a mortgage broker and haven't heard back, will it affect my credit if I move on to the next one?
Yes, 2 very good questions.
Good question.
Who wants to answer the first one? How long are you locked in? So I'll just share with you guys, there's no agency relationship with a mortgage broker in the same respect as an agency relationship with a realtor. So generally speaking, when you set up an agency relationship, and guys, agent is one of those words that's kind of, used loosely, but think of it like, you're getting drafted into the NBA, and you have an agent, and they're negotiating your contract. That's a high-level agency relationship, and you sign an agency agreement, or what we call a representation agreement. You don't sign one of those with a mortgage broker. You have the right to shop around. You have the right to negotiate terms. I believe if someone's doing great service for you, you want to see them compensated for their time.
For sure.
But in theory, Melia, you can go to one, see what they can do for you, and if you're not happy, you can the next day book an appointment with someone else. And what was the second question?
If she submitted information to a mortgage broker and haven't heard back, will it affect her credit if she moves on to another mortgage
It's an
broker?
inquiry.
Yeah, so, one of the things that I think we should dig into a little bit today is credit. And there's a lot of things that affect your credit. One of them is how many inquiries are pulled on your beacon or on your bureau,
Your
credit
bureau,
bureau. And that's one of like about 20 different things that affect
Mhm.
it. It really doesn't affect it that
Too
much.
much, no.
Not a lot, no.
You can fill it
And
in,
the thing
Sabrina.
is, if they've, if you submitted the information to them, maybe they haven't even submitted to the bank yet, cause usually you get a quick answer, right? So I would ask, if they've submitted it to the bank for an approval, and if they haven't, then I would just tell them to cancel it and go with somebody else if they're not happy.
And just to give you like a hard example, I had what we call a hard pull on credit from 3 different people within 1 week, just because I was shopping around for, I think, a mortgage. I was shopping around for a mortgage, and my credit score went from, let's just say, 875 to about 840. So, 35 beacon points, right? So it does pull it down. Does it pull it down as much as missing a payment or other factors? No.
Sorry to interrupt, some brokers will actually let you pull up your own credit. And they'll just tell you if you qualify or not. So that doesn't show up as an inquiry if you pull it up on your own.
And one of the things we're going to do at the end of this too is, what do you do now? And one of the best things you can do is go to Equifax.ca and actually pull your own credit, because you might not even know. There might be things on there that you're not aware of that could affect your buying power. So, everyone watching, you should just do that. It's free. If you want, you could pay $15, I think, and get the enhanced report, but otherwise it's free. So I would advise everyone to know, credit intelligence and financial, what's the word for it? Financial,
Competence?
what's the word, guys? Financial intelligence.
Yeah.
You have to learn these things, right? These are the things you don't learn in school.
But you should.
Hopefully you're getting some of this out of today.
There's a story actually where a client of mine, we submitted a credit report for a rental, and then the landlord came back to us. The landlord came back to us saying like, "Oh, your client says he worked here on his employment letter, but on the credit report, it says he worked at Samsung Canada for like 15 years, but my client never, in fact, ever worked at Samsung Canada." So things like that, always get thrown into people's credit, and it could mess it up in a certain way. So that's why I think it's very important for people to
To
start
check it.
checking it
Mhm.
and making sure that all the information on there is valid, right? And accurate.
Almost like knowing your bank balance. You know
Exactly.
your bank balance, know your credit score.
Exactly.
For me, I had, and Alicia's gonna laugh at this, I had 2 unpaid parking tickets for well over 10 months. And, that came up, and they said, well, listen, it's affecting your credit score, right? So there's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so going back to the team and going back to the offer, and we're deep diving into Ashley's experience in 2009. So when you bought that, do you remember what you had originally offered?
I think it was 263,
And what were they asking?
265.
So they were asking 265, and you offered 263. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Sabrina, what were they asking up in Barrie, and what did you offer?
It was 348. I offered 340.
Good.
They came back at 345. And I accepted.
Yeah. And Justin, when you bought that pre-construction with your family, you gave them the price that they wanted.
Yeah, there's no negotiating.
No
There's
negotiation.
no negotiating.
So guys, one thing you should know, and one of the questions you should ask your realtor is, are you in a buyer's market? Are you in a balanced market? Are you in a seller's market? Or are you in a hyper seller's market? Or are you in a hyper buyer's market? All right, and the way we calculate that is we calculate that based on months of inventory. Now, months of inventory, if it's over 4 or 5 months, you can negotiate. As a first-time buyer, they can be asking 345 and you can offer 300, all right? Generally speaking, for as long as I've been in the real estate industry, we seldom have seen 4, 5, 6 months inventory in the GTA. Right now, for Durham region, we're hovering at 1.8 months inventory. For the GTA freehold, we're hovering at 2.2 months inventory. For York region, we're hovering at 2.2 months inventory. Can't speak to Peel, I don't have the number in front of me. However, the condo market is starting to balance out,
Yeah.
right? And we're going to talk a little bit about some of our condo buyers who are condo hunting right now, and how right now we believe as long as people can start taking the elevators and start using the gym sometime in the future, condos are a sweet spot right now. Is the party over? No. But for now, prices are coming down. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, so when you submitted this offer, Ashley, 263 and
I think it was 260 and they came back at 260.
yes, so
One.
that's what we want to talk about, right? So
Yeah.
they were asking 265, you had offered 260,
Yeah,
and then they signed back,
yes.
right? And they signed back 261.
I think it was 262 and then I got it at 261.
Good. So you negotiated, right?
Yeah.
You went back and forth. And this countering, usually it's countering price, but there's other terms to the offer as well, right? So going back to your purchase, price we're talking about 260, 265, 262, 261. You knocked off a good 4,000 off the asking price. What were some of the other terms?
I put condition on financing and condition on review of the status certificate.
Good. And we're going to talk more about conditions as we go through this, but we had price, we had conditions. What else were the terms of the offer? Probably deposit, right?
Oh, the closing date.
And the closing date.
I did a 3-week close.
Wow.
Trying to get out of Bowmanville.
Yeah. Back to the city.
Now, one thing to know, guys, is if the property is vacant, the seller's going to want to quick
Quicker
close,
closing.
right? So that probably was good leverage, right? If you took a 3-month closing, maybe it wouldn't have been 261 that you got it for, right? And deposit, do you remember how much your deposit was?
I don't remember.
It was probably a
Probably.
minimal amount. One of the questions we get asked sometimes is, what's the point of a deposit? Now, for contract law, you need 2 things for a contract to be binding. You need execution, which is signing, and you need consideration, which is a deposit. It's basically goodwill,
Yeah.
right? And it's held in trust until you close, right? Okay, so you negotiate and then you're conditional. And then what happened?
Then I sent the agreement to my mortgage broker and to my lawyer.
Good.
And
So when we talk about team, this is when the lawyer starts to get involved. All right? Do you have another question?
Karen, how do you vet a lawyer? I've come across terrible lawyers, but it's always a little too late when I found out they are not very qualified.
my lawyer was a referral
Yeah.
through my agent as well,
Was it probably Adam?
Adam.
Yeah. You know what? When you have a good team, Karen, I think it really helps. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but we really believe in referrals.
Yeah.
And there are good lawyers, there are bad lawyers, just like there are good realtors and bad realtors. I'll say, how can I be politically correct about this? Bad lawyer is something that can be said in many different ways. Sabrina's smiling at me because we went to town with a bad lawyer on a commercial deal. But bad lawyers could also be people that just are micromanaging the deal, right?
That's right.
Causing issues for nothing.
That's right.
How would you guys vet a lawyer?
Referrals for sure.
Yeah.
Don't always go based on like the cheapest lawyer because
Yeah.
you really
Yeah.
get what you pay for.
For sure.
It's really important to have a good lawyer.
Yes.
I think it's one of those things where it's like you shouldn't cheap out on. Like, you shouldn't go for the cheapest lawyer because it is a big purchase that you're doing, and you want to make sure that you're getting the best representation as possible, right? So,
And also find a lawyer that works the type of property that you're looking at.
Yeah.
If you're looking at pre-construction, get a lawyer who sees those kind of documents all the time.
That's right.
If you're getting someone who's buying a cottage property, don't use a lawyer from the city. If you're getting someone who's local to Whitby, they might know the land registry in Whitby, right?
Absolutely.
Another thing that's come up, we're in COVID, so we've had a whole bunch of virtual signings. And I'll just acknowledge Mitch Corman, shameless plug, has done a great job for us. He's helped us, with clients sign virtually, notarize virtually, acknowledge the signatures and the IDs, and confirm the people all via screen, right? So, we're in a new world now too, right? So referrals, local, understanding the type of property. Google, it helps a little bit, right? Everybody scopes everybody out on social and Google. But I think referrals probably the most important thing. Alicia, anybody else got any questions right now?
Not about lawyers, no.
So as we're going, feel free to type, and we're very happy to take these things on.
I have a
All right.
question about down payment.
Down payment question?
Yep.
Yeah.
Alyssa is asking, as a young professional with about 12K student debt, should I be concentrating on saving money for a down payment or paying off debt?
Great
And
question.
will this affect my mortgage eligibility?
Okay. So I have got my answer, but Sabrina looks like she's ready to go on this one. Go ahead.
It all depends. I guess every situation is different. It depends on your income. Depends on your income. It depends on your credit. It's all as a package, right?
Yeah.
For
I would
sure.
say every situation is different. So
And Alyssa, I'm going to add to that, the rate that you pay off your student loan versus the rate that the property is appreciating, you may want to jump into the market faster. If you're in a hyper seller's market and literally 8 months from now, the property that you can afford has gone up $25,000, you may actually be sitting on the sidelines and be buying an inferior property by the time you pay off your student debt. Right? And we've been through that with clients where they've said, oh, you know what, I've got my student loan. As soon as I clear out my student loan, I'm going to aggressively save. Don't forget, your student loan, if it's OSAP, is interest free for a long period, right? And then it's minimal payment requirements. To me, high interest loans, like credit card, pay that off. Student loan, I'd say that's less of a priority, especially if the appreciation is happening fast.
sorry, I thought she meant if she can't get approved. But yeah, if you can definitely get approved, 100% purchase before
Yeah.
paying that off.
And if the bank says, listen, you owe 12,000 here, you can't buy the property you want, then yes, you have
Yeah.
to pay it off first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going through the
We're good.
we're going through this purchase process, and the lawyer gets involved in a condo deal during the conditional period. They're going to review something called a status certificate, where they actually look at a bunch of things. What are some of the things that they've looked at? And if you have any interesting stories, we can tell them while we're going here.
To see if there's any liens on the property.
Yeah?
You want to see
Alright.
how much money they have in the reserve fund?
Yes.
If they've been sued, if there's any lawsuits.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll add to that. There are 2 lawyers in downtown Toronto who are notorious for fine-tooth combing the status certificate, and basically, like, they're like those people that look at a property and say, "Oh, this bulb is a little shaky," all the electrical shot, right? So, you want to look at, I'd say, if there's any liens, how much money they have on the reserve, if there's any lawsuits. And other than that, just make sure that the condo is in good standing and financially viable. Oh, one more thing. If you've got a condo, take a look at how many rental units there are. If the condo is 80% rental versus 10% rental, that gives you an idea of how your neighbors are going to maintain the building. Okay? I'm going to pause here for a second on lawyers and Ashley's journey and just share with you, when Angela and I bought a house, our conditions to the offer were financing and home inspection. And again, adding to your team, we've got the realtor, we've got the mortgage professional, we've got the lawyer. Having a certified home inspector is another part of the puzzle. Now, right now, in a seller's market, you sometimes are doing an inspection even before an offer. But in a balanced market or a buyer's market or even a balanced seller's market, You buy a property conditional on an inspection. If anybody really wants one, I've got about 6 copies of the Carson and Dunlop Home Inspection Handbook, and write it down if you're interested in the chat. We'll courier one out to you. It's a great book. You're basically looking at the 9 elements of a home. Structural, insulation, foundation, electrical, plumbing,
Heating and cooling.
grading, water, right? All the different elements of the property that you're inspecting to make sure that what you're buying doesn't have any material defects.
Kyra wanted just to talk about sellers versus buyer markets. I see houses on one street with high sellers, but one street over it's buyers. Is this determined by price point, street, neighborhood, etc.? And how quickly does this change, since houses in Toronto are on the market for such few days?
So I'm just to illustrate buyer's market versus seller's market. Basically all of Toronto is a seller's market. Whether a street has more inventory or not, chances are it will get absorbed fairly quickly. Overall as a market, Kyla, I just want to make sure that we have your question right and we're answering it right, but we are in a seller's market in Toronto for houses, and they all do move quickly. If one street has several listings, that's a rarity. You're not going to find too many streets that have more than one property for sale at any time.
I think there's one. I think it depends on the pricing strategy too. Like
Yeah.
if the one agent on the one street, they're overlisting or overpricing their listing a little bit more, it may take a little bit longer to sell versus the street over where they're underlisting it for multiple offers. Then yeah, most likely that one will be gone within 6-7 days, right? So I think pricing strategy for sure has to do with how long houses do sit on the market. But for sure, like all of Toronto right now is still seller's market.
Yeah.
Yeah, and percentage of asking, generally speaking, is Toronto's one of the only places in the world where the average percentage of asking is more than 100%,
Mm-hmm.
which is strange in itself.
That's right.
Okay, so we've talked about team a little bit. Go ahead, Alicia.
Devin just wanted to talk about home inspections one more time.
Yes.
Can you list the 9 main elements?
You know what, Dev? I don't want to misstate them, but I appreciate that question. I'm going to give you the ones that I know for sure, and I'll promise you I'll get you a copy of that book. But, we're talking about plumbing, electrical, foundation, grading, heating and cooling, insulation or R value, roofing. What I should call it is the whole process of flow of water. So that would be the roof elements, which is the type of roof, the slope of the roof, the eaves and downspouts. And I promise you, we'll pull it up and get you the other ones too. But basically, it's all the different components that make up a house. And like I said, we'll confirm the exact 9 for you. It's not a test, guys. All right, well, let's keep going. Inspector. So when we did our inspection, he came back and he said, overall, and by the way, it's not a pass or fail. Overall, this is a safe home. There is no issue with the breakers in the electrical. There's no issue with the joists. There's no issue with the beams. There's no issue with the poured concrete basement. There's no issue with the grading. But he did point out a couple things for maintenance, repair, and prevention. So what I would say is, even if you have a home, or even if you've bought a home firm, a home inspection, as much as it is a point of the negotiation, it's also a point of education, right? Alicia, you're here. I remember when you and Shane bought your place. There was little negotiation because it was a seller's market, but we did a home inspection, right? And there were elements to the home that came up that you feel better, you feel peace of mind knowing what you're dealing with, right? So with regards to the team, think of the realtor as a quarterback. All right, they're setting the play, they're laying out the flow of the land, they're making sure that the ball hits the end zone. And then you've got all these other parts to the team. You've got a running back, you've got a tight end, you've got a wide receiver. In the same respect, the realtor should be the nucleus, supplying you your mortgage professional, supplying you great lawyers, supplying you home inspectors. What are some of the other parts of the team that, you know, usually come up? Just curious. if there's any-
Accountant would be a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Accountants, sometimes people don't think of that, but you know, depending on what type of property you're buying, there are tax benefits, right? So I would definitely say an accountant is another part. Insurance is another part too.
Yeah.
Having a good insurance provider, you do need insurance when it gets time to close on the property. So having someone who can provide competitive insurance policy is also very important. On the topic of insurance, there's mortgage insurance too, and then there's the thought of not having mortgage insurance but getting some sort of other policy against the mortgage of the home. I believe in the latter. We can talk about that a little bit later, but insurance, accountant,
Any tradespeople?
tradespeople,
For sure.
Movers.
movers,
Painters.
painters, right? So all these people are very important parts of home ownership and home buying. Whether it's a condo, whether it's a freehold property, your realtor is the quarterback,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Like a Kaepernick, maybe a Joe Namath.
I don't know football, but
Did that go over your head, guys? All right. Let's keep going. All right. So back to Ashley's purchase, 2009. Bought the home, 261. Deposits in. Status certificate gets read. Mortgage broker, right? It was a broker that you used,
Yeah.
right?
Mm,
So at that time, you had a pre-approval in place,
yes,
but you probably had to do some more things to actually get the mortgage.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So probably, you know, there's usually conditions to a mortgage, right?
yeah.
So I'm just trying to think. Usually, you have to supply your T4As
T4As.
or your NOAs.
I actually have a question about that.
Yeah.
Marlin, is it possible to get pre-approved for a mortgage if my spouse is on CERB/EI?
Yeah.
100% Marlin. So most lenders are looking at CERB/EI as a temporary scenario. However, CERB with a promise to return is totally different than you know, unemployed, right? So we've got buyers right now that are on CERB with a promise to return, and that's very different than, I'm sorry, we've terminated your employment. Now, your buying power will be determined on income, and if you're unemployed versus on CERB or temporary CERB or temporary EI, that's the big question. And Marlon, if we didn't answer that right, just feel free to write more to us. But hopefully that the short answer, yes. The long answer, there's some gray matter there too, and your mortgage professional should really guide you in that.
For sure.
Okay, so once the financing's done, right, and you finish getting this full approval, then we're signing fulfillments. All right, so once the status certificate's read, and once the financing is complete, Ash, you would have
Had to sign a notice of fulfillment
for the conditions.
Yes.
Right.
Mm.
Once you complete the notice of fulfillments, you've now bought the property. All right, and this is called in-term closing. If you watch any reality TV in the U.S., it's called in escrow, but we don't have escrow here. It's called in-term closing in Ontario. So during that time, do you remember, did you have purchaser visits?
I had 2 purchaser visits to go in to measure, just to make sure everything was working.
Yeah. So one of the parts of the agreement of purchase and sale, chattels to be in normal working order upon completion, and property to be delivered in same condition with which it was purchased. So during those purchaser visits, you're going in and making sure that everything's okay. Have we ever experienced strange circumstance, guys, during purchaser visits? For the buyer, Justin. Let's not talk about last week and your seller, but
For the buyer, well, I had one actually, a deal of mine just recently, on closing date, my clients went in there and their AC was not working. So in our agreement, we had a clause in there stating that all chattels and all mechanical systems of the property will be in good working order. So when my clients did go in that night of closing, they tried to turn on the AC, it wasn't working. They gave it 1 day, gave them the benefit of the doubt, said maybe it may take a little bit longer to cool. So they waited another day and it still wasn't working. So I had to go back to the agent and say, look, the AC's not working. My client went there the day of closing. We wrote a letter to the lawyer just so we could, have a record of everything that's going on. So that's what I would suggest. If there's something that's not working, once you do take possession of your property, to make note of it, write an email to your lawyer or to the agent or to anybody, just so you have it in writing. And then what had happened is that the seller in turn, even after closing, had to go back and pay for the unit to get fixed until it was in good working order again. So that's something that's very important. Once you get the keys to your property and you close, just once again do one more over where you're making sure that everything is working okay. And if it's not, then I believe you have about 24 hours to go back to the seller and just clarify the situation or have them rectify it.
Yeah, so I mean, just another example, we have buyers who closed on a property, and when they got there, the dining room light fixture, an expensive light fixture, was removed, right? And this happens sometimes, and a lot of this can be prevented if you plan one of those purchaser visits for the day prior to closing or 2 days prior to closing, right? And your realtor should go with you to make sure that the property as seen is the property as purchased, right? Another one that comes up with closing is, this is a clause we put in, property to be left in broom swept clean condition, free of all personal belongings and debris. I'd say we're batting probably about 800 as a city as far as that goes, right? Like, we've all had buyers that go in, and by the time you go in, it is dusty. Maybe they've left some junk. Maybe garbage day is on Wednesday and you close on the Tuesday and they put a whole bunch of stuff out at the curb. I'll say as a best practice, have a good cleaner, a move-in cleaner as part of your team. We're talking about team, and I think the theme tonight is a little bit of who as well as what, right? Have somebody who can go in, just pre-move to do a full detail of the property. It just feels better, right?
Agreed.
The worst one, I think, my cousin, first-time home buyer, him and his girlfriend at the time, they got their keys. I called him like, how you doing? He says, we're so happy, we're cleaning, we're polishing, I got the Vim out, I got this out, I got that out, I got the Limacol. He was so ecstatic about buying this property, but needless to say, it was not in broom swept clean condition, free of all personal belongings and debris, right? So, I mean, take that with a grain of salt. Contracts are great. Enforcement of contracts are horrible, right? By the way, guys, just so you know, prevention is much more important than enforcement of the law, because small claims court
It's
and that
expensive.
whole, there you go.
Takes
Really,
time.
time and expensive.
Do you want to talk about the Don Mills one, the tenanted one, the condo at Winford,
Which one was that one again? Winford.
Clydebank, buyer? So I'm gonna prompt Justin here. We had a buyer who bought a condo near Winford.
Oh,
she
yes,
was
yes,
she
yes,
was
yes,
moving
yes,
from a
yes, yes,
house, and it was tenanted, right?
Horrible tenant from hell actually. So he had paintings literally all over his condo. Like he even nailed paintings in his bathtub.
Oh, I remember this.
in his bathtub tile. And
He was the artsy tenant from hell.
he was an artsy tenant from hell. But yeah, long story short, the seller had to bring him to court because he was refusing to leave. So then, long story short, he got 5 months compensation back from the landlord, or not the landlord, from the seller. But my buyer had nothing to do with that. She just had to go to court and just swear on affidavit that she was going to be moving there for herself, which forced him out. And then when we went there for a purchaser's visit, literally like the walls looked like Swiss cheese. There was holes everywhere. We went the day before closing and there was still holes everywhere. So my client was kind of panicking, and then luckily the contractor came in as soon as we were walking out, so she had that peace of mind that okay, the guy's in here, he's gonna be filling the walls and whatever. But it was quite interesting.
And I mean, this buyer, lovely woman, right? But the challenge of buying a tenanted property is, you know, you've got some other things to manage, and really and truly, you want to lean into your realtor for that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The nice thing about buying tenanted property, price sometimes, right? You can
It doesn't
sometimes
show well. It doesn't show well. So we were actually able to get a good deal on this piece of property because it didn't show well. The tenant was being very difficult in terms of when he was willing to show it. We were just fortunate enough to get a time slot that he was willing to do. But I think if it was presented a little bit better and my client wasn't able to see past all that craziness, then you know they would have got a better price for it. But because my client was able to see past all of that, we were able to negotiate a good price for it.
good. So on the topic of trades, you know, sometimes if you buy a tenanted property, having someone to patch the walls and do paint before you move in, another sort of good person that should be part of your team.
That's right.
Okay,
Question?
Marlon wants to know, when can you request a purchaser's visit in general when buying a home? What's the good time, like a timeline?
So it's anytime between like firming up the deal to final closing. I always recommend the first purchaser's visit. You can go in whenever you want. If you wanted to take a contractor in there to take a look at the space, or you want to bring family member in there to see the space, that's fine. You can do that at any time. But I would always recommend to do your last purchaser's visit, like Rav said, the day before closing or a couple days before closing, just so you could try all the appliances. You could make sure that, you know, majority of their stuff is gone, and
If there is anything wrong, you have time to go
Exactly.
to get it fixed before you close.
Or you could you have time to go back to the lawyer and say, look, the stove wasn't working. Maybe you need a holdback on closing or something like that, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, really and truly anytime, but save one for at least the week of closing. I'll share with you one more thing too. Having two agents on both sides that have a relationship or that have some sort of experience or have the ability to put together a deal and work together is really good too. So having win-win, some people call it WWND, which is win-win, no deal, win-win or no deal. It's nice, right? So I'll just share with you, Ashley and I, we have a closing tomorrow. And the seller had a deficiency, had water damage, right? Right
Yeah.
when we had
Yeah.
offered.
A flood.
But the agent, Pat, if you ever watch this, you're awesome. He was so full of disclosure, so full of integrity, so going above and beyond to make sure that the buyer was satisfied. So sometimes buying from, you know, the tenanted property and, you know, the win on price, sometimes the win is just having the awesome seller and the awesome agent and the win on the actual closing, right? And you know, our client is a lawyer, so lawyer and makeup artist. So you know, they wanted to go in and make the home perfect, renovate it, but needless to say, they also want to make sure that the contract was held up as well, right? Okay, so on the topic of purchaser visits, on the topic of, you know, the process once you firm up, the other thing that comes up usually during that time between firming up the deal and having that interim closing before you actually get your keys is appraisal. All right. Now, for those of you who know what appraisal is, that's great. But for those of you who maybe are not familiar, the bank lends on a property based on the lower of the purchase price or the appraised value. All right. So when a bank has you buying a property, or sorry, is giving a mortgage on a property, they're going to send in an appraiser to make sure that the property is worth what you paid for it. And just to be clear, if you fall short, let's just say you buy a property and it's super competitive and you buy it for 705, and then the bank says, sorry buddy, this is only going to appraise for 650, there's a shortfall. All right, and you will have to make the difference in the down payment amount.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're running at a small down payment, make sure that you understand the risk and the exposure around appraisal. Anything else to add to appraisal, guys?
I guess if you have a financing condition, say like 5 days, get them in there
Before
ASAP,
that,
like
yeah.
within the 5 days.
Yeah. So, you know, a good mortgage professional can order the appraisal the day you
Yeah.
accept the offer. Get the appraisal all done. And honestly, I'm so frustrated when an appraisal gets booked right at closing.
Mhm.
It
Right, like
happens
that-
a lot, yeah.
It happens a
Yeah.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
My belief, why leave it up to chance, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just do the appraisal, get it done,
That's
peace
right.
of mind, right? If you, just to illustrate this mathematically, if you buy a home for, let's use round numbers, 500,000, and it only appreciates or appraises for 480,000, and you're putting 5% down, which is 20,000 on the 500,000, technically they're going to say, okay, put 20% down on the 480, which, help me out guys, 20% would be
96,000?
no 20%, sorry, 5% down on the 480, which would be
24,000?
24,000, but then make up the difference,
20,000, yeah.
which is 20,000. All right, so just be aware of that, guys. Appraisal is a very important part of the puzzle that you don't want to forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so trades, lawyers, realtor, mortgage professional, insurance provider, appraiser. All right, let's keep going. So outside of team, just to move on to some of the other things that we're discussing here, timing. Here's a question that we hear a lot. I want to wait until I have more money to buy a home. What's the pros and cons of that? Anyone can answer.
You might be priced out, you might wait too long, and the house you could have afforded now, you can't afford anymore.
Yeah, I'd say that's the big concern, right? If you're pricing out. Another way that that same sort of objection is said is, I want to wait till I don't have to pay CMHC premiums because I don't want to have to pay a CMHC premium on my purchase. CMHC is an insurance body that insures anyone who's putting less than 20% down. But do yourselves a favor, guys. Remember the stories. Ravi bought with 5% down his home for $414. Ashley bought her home with 5% down for $261. And Sabrina bought her home for $345 with 5% down. Guys, between the two of us, we had 5% on 400. By the time we would have saved up
Yeah.
20%, that house would have not been 414. It
No.
would have been 614.
That's right.
Right? So just keep that in mind, right? Another beautiful saying about timing is it's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market, right? The more time you have in the market, better than, waiting for the market to change. Who thinks next year their own property will be worth less money? Does anybody think that?
No.
Could be, but even if it is, you're missing out on the principal pay down, you're missing out on the equity.
Yeah.
Alicia?
Kyra is wondering, what are the different listing strategies to be aware of? Example, listing low to get interest, listing at the market value, or others? How should we as buyers approach our look?
Yeah, great question.
So I would say the first part of that is to get your realtor to pull up comparables, what has been selling in the area, just so you can get a gauge as to what that specific house should be going for. And then, once you can figure out that ballpark number, then you know whether or not the list price is under that value or if it's over that value, and then you can kind of negotiate accordingly.
Yeah.
In general, another thing too, general rule of thumb, if you do see that there is an offer date on the listing generally means that the seller is expecting to get over the ask price.
They've underpriced it.
Yeah, exactly. So if there's no offer date, then usually it means that, you know, they priced it exactly where they want to be, if not a little bit over what market value is, and then they're ready to kind of do the old school negotiating.
You know, Kyra, the other thing too is that listing is being represented by the listing agent who represents the seller. And their only job is to get the best terms for the seller, which is why you want to have a buyer agent or a buyer representative to get the best terms for the buyer and also provide education to the buyer, right? I mean, many times we've looked at comps or, you know, looked at the property and we've said, yeah, the agent here has underpriced it. It's going to go for X, likely. Could go for a lot more. Chance here too, and we've been through some interesting bidding wars when him and his beautiful wife were buying, right? But I mean, it's one of these things where the listing agent is trying to stock up energy and momentum and interest on a property if they underlist. Your buyer agent shouldn't just tell you; they should show you with comparable data, with research, with insight to say, look, this is what it's going to go for. And the 4 people here, I mean, we're not trying to toot our own horn, but if we tell you this is what it's likely going to go for, we're usually pretty bang on, unless there's strange circumstances.
Yeah.
What's the most amount of offers you guys have ever seen on offer night?
38.
38.
Well, we had in
Yeah.
Barry,
Very.
38
Like
in Barry.
3
That was
months
this
ago?
year with a first-time
Like 3
buyer.
months ago, yeah.
26.
Yeah.
26. How
I
about you?
think 23, something like that.
The most for me ever was in Central, and I don't even work in Central that much. It was like on Hillsdale, and I remember it was my client. She flips homes. This was a total fixer-upper, and that back then there were 27 offers. And for what it's worth, a lot of things are done digitally now. Back then, all the agents and all the cars and all the paperwork and all the late hours, we'd be parked outside like just a caravan of cars. They'd call us in. We'd spend like literally like 6 hours outside of the house just presenting and renegotiating, right? There are deals to be had, and another thing to keep in mind is your buyer agent may be able to find off-market deals, right? We have a tool at our company called BrokerBay, and we also have a very powerful network of coming soons and exclusives. So just keep that in mind too, right? What's on the internet is not the market. It's a part of the market, right? So your buyer agent should be able to provide even more inventory to choose from. And in tight inventory, when there's two homes that you like, if you can find a third, that's a big win.
Yeah.
Okay? So market conditions. We talked a little bit about buyer's market, seller's market, and thank you very much for that question. Oh, sorry guys, just bear with me for a sec here.
Realtor life. Hashtag.
Sorry guys, I just had a call from my mother-in-law here.
It's our first time live. Learning curve.
That's
learning
okay,
curve.
guys, that's
learning
okay.
Curve, learning curve.
It's all part of the fun. So in terms of the market conditions, right now we are dealing with pretty much a seller's market everywhere. But it's always in a state of flux, right? So last night we submitted an offer, Ashley and I, for our buyers. And both of us were like, oh, this is going to go for a certain amount. This is going to go more. And the buyer was like, I don't think I want to pay that much. And he ended up getting it for exactly what he wanted to pay, right? It was over asking price, but it was within where he wanted to be, right? So just keep that in mind, right? The market conditions are always changing.
Sure.
Question.
Marlon, is there a cost when using a buyer agent?
Nope.
No.
The seller pays the commission.
Yes.
But yeah, the buyer does not pay commission directly.
Yeah.
Per se.
So Marlon, that's a really interesting question because the simple answer is there's no fee that you pay. Like you don't write a check to, the buyer agent. You don't hire the buyer agent for a hourly wage. the seller pays a commission to the listing agent, and then the listing agent pays the buyer agent. But it's all hard coded into the price, right? So just be aware that while you're not writing a check or writing anything, technically you're buying a home and you're the one buying the home, and somewhere in there is some compensation that is paid out to anybody, whether it's the listing agent doing what we call double ending the deal, or you having a buyer agent.
It's built into the price,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so to speak.
Yeah, I believe buyer agents, good ones, are worth their weight in gold. And if you have somebody just kind of opening the door for you, you don't really have agency or representation. You have,
Customer
someone
service.
opening the door, right? So just keep that in mind, right? Any more questions? Okay, so let's keep moving on here. So in terms of the market conditions, I was saying that there is a deal to be had right now with respect to certain sub-segments of the market. Justin, why don't you share a little bit about where Fashion House was going to go and where it ended up going?
Yeah, so one of my listings at King and Portland, before COVID, we probably could have gotten about like mid 700s, 740s, 750s, because that's what comparables were suggesting. But then COVID hit, and then we had to list. So we listed it at, I believe, 739 to begin with, right around where we thought we should have got. But unfortunately, I mean, because of COVID, everything was slow. So we did a price reduction down to 719. Still we got showings, but still no offers. So my client was like, what's going on? We could have gotten 740 about 3 months ago, but COVID was there. So long story short, we reduced it down again to 699, and then again down to 680, and then finally we got it sold at 660. So I mean, my client didn't technically lose money because she bought it, for 3 or 4 years ago for 400 and something, but her expectations in January, February were completely different than what we actually sold for in
Summer.
August, right? So I think that's what it is what the seller's expectations were pre-COVID versus what the market is actually dictating now that COVID is here. So there's definitely deals to be had. That's one situation where, we were on the seller side, but I can explain another story where I just did a deal at Leslie and Shepherd, a 1+ den, the same exact unit about 2 months ago sold for 575,000, and then we were able to secure this exact same unit on a higher floor for 535,000. So we were able to benefit our buyer in this situation just because of COVID, right?
So market's always in flux, and depending on where, market can totally be different.
That's right.
Ashley, why don't you tell them about Willows? And this is a property you sold. What's the difference between your sale and just the other ones just prior?
So I sold the house in Ajax. I had a listing, and it was a 3-bedroom townhouse. The other ones had sold. What was the
550.
Yeah, 525, 550, 576, and we ended up getting 580,
585.
585.
So the slope there is totally different, right?
Yeah.
On one you have a slope going like this, and the other you have a slope going like this. And it's two totally different markets right within the GTA, right? So, that education process you really want to have.
And I think it's like the trend I'm seeing is like where the entry point level is, like the 500,000 to 600,000. Those products are moving like fairly quickly still, but once you get up to like north of 700, like, and then into the luxury over $1 million, that's where we're kind of seeing the slowdown right now. But still, the entry point is still a very competitive market, like at the 500,000 range.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even in Barrie.
And Sabrina, your teacher client that was looking in the summer, what did she end up doing, and what was her sort of process?
Now she ended up purchasing from a builder
Yes.
directly, but from within 550, they were sold within like same day. multiple
Yeah.
offers, 38 offers on the property, which I've never seen.
Yeah.
We found anything, yeah, under 600,000, even all the way up in Barrie. They're
Super
selling really quick.
competitive.
Yeah.
With a lot of people working from home now too, for the same
Exactly.
price, a condo downtown, they can
Yeah.
get
The suburbs are getting very.
a house in.
Exactly.
Very
For more
hot now.
space, right?
And isn't that ironic? Because just a little while ago, it was like the city was so hot, right?
Well,
it can shift.
Pre-COVID, I got my place appraised for about 470, and now it's probably 580.
Yeah. Right?
And this is like from December,
Yeah.
so.
Well, one of the things I'll share with you too, this is to Kyra's question about listing strategies and what you should be aware of as a buyer. So there's the offer date strategy where you've underpriced and got an offer date. There's another little tricky one in there, and I'm dealing with this right now, where the listing agent says offers anytime, minimum 48-hour irrevocability. That's kind of like one of these ones where they're saying, hey, offers anytime, but we're really banking that over the next 2 days, we'll see a bunch of multiple offers, right? So, I mean, just having the education and the buyer agent to really handhold you through this is very important. So guys, we've got 2 more things to cover, and if you do have any questions, feel free to write. But I want to,
Sorry.
yeah,
Marlon has a question about a buyer agent. How
Yeah.
does one acquire a great buyer's agent?
We're right here.
Referral again.
Referral for sure.
so I want to just acknowledge that Marlon, Kyra, a couple of you guys, Devin, you guys are making this fun for us. So, thank you for
Thank you.
for feeding us stuff to talk about. We really appreciate this. The whole goal was really not a PowerPoint presentation, just conversation, right? How does one go about acquiring a good buyer agent, guys?
Referral is
yeah.
always the best thing, I think. Word
Yeah.
of mouth. Somebody who's experienced or had a good experience.
Yeah.
Someone you trust and someone you like.
Yeah.
Someone, you know,
Likability is very,
Yeah.
very, very
Because
big.
you might like somebody and maybe I can't stand them,
Yeah.
right? You gotta drive around with these people.
And even
You
if
know.
Just a good
even
fit.
if it's a
Yeah.
great agent but they're not likable and you dread having to go see houses with them every day, it doesn't make the experience enjoyable. You know,
Which
you
it
want
should be.
to. It's a big milestone of your life. You want to pick somebody who's good at what they do. Plus, you don't mind spending a few hours with them a day if you have to, right?
So let's think about some of the things that make a good buyer agent. I'll go first. I'm going to say availability and response time. And you want someone who something's happening, like this is a major process, you can get to them. What's another one?
Knows location.
Knowledgeable,
knowledge of- yeah.
right? Like knows the market, knows the location. Beautiful. What's another one?
Honest.
Honest. Yes, that's actually right up there with anything, right?
Yeah.
Like some agents, they're focusing on their compensation.
For
Yeah.
sure.
You want an agent who's focusing on your home. What's another one?
Good negotiator.
Negotiator, right? If you have somebody but they're kind of a pushover, I mean, you don't want that, right?
No.
Anything else?
Like they have to be able to listen to what you're,
Yeah. Being
What you-
empathetic is a huge thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
what you're actually looking for.
Yeah, so you want basically this really nice, ferocious lion, right? You want someone who can really protect your interests and then get out there and fight with the best of them,
And someone
right?
just really like educates you on everything.
Yeah.
Like not just all the good things that can happen, how much money you're gonna make, all the things that can go
It's
wrong.
advising. You want an
right?
advisor.
Yes.
An advisor. Somebody who can show you, lay out everything on a table and, really guide you through making the right decision that's best for you.
I'll share with you, I'm car shopping right now, and I went to go see somebody all the way in Burlington because they had a car I kind of liked, and I just took a liking to this guy. He was so enthusiastic about his product. He was so knowledgeable about his product. I left. He said, I'll drive out the car to you in Scarborough if you really want to come see it. He was service oriented, and I never once, ever felt like he was trying to close me.
Yeah.
You know that ABC, always be closing? No, it's always be serving. And that's really our mantra. Anything else to add to buyer agent? I think, if you're really trying to acquire a buyer agent, we are available for buyer consults. And, if you're looking for someone outside of our neighborhood, if you want to go buy in Prince Edward County, we have the network to help you with that too, right? do yourself a favor. This is a big RE/MAX slogan. Go with somebody who knows, and not just someone you know.
Yeah.
Right? You could have everybody has a friend who's a realtor. I'm a friend to a lot of people who know me as a realtor. I never want to be hired because I'm their friend. I want to be hired because I can service you the best, right? If anybody wants, send me an email, ravi@connexusgroup.ca, and I'll send you a whole bunch of questions if you're interviewing a buyer agent or interviewing a listing agent. All right? Question?
Yeah. Sorry, Marlon just said that was great advice.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Marlon.
Kyra wants to know, how many listings can we reasonably ask our buyer's agent to take us on?
Wait. Before we get to that question, Marlon, we want you to write, if you had to pick between Ravi, Ashley, Justin, or Sabrina, who would you pick? All right? Let's just see, just for giggles, right? But question was, how many homes should you realistically want to see? Do you want to talk about
In one day?
Do you want to talk about your North York condo buyer?
Oh,
Olivia?
We're not naming names today, guys.
no, you know what? No.
I'll just share with you. We have one buyer right now. She's sweet, but she's convinced that she needs to see 300 homes. Right? Shant's pointing to himself. He was that buyer too, right? What do you guys think?
In one day, I think, I've taken someone to look at 17 homes in a day.
It's a lot. You forget what they.
You forget. You get overwhelmed. I'd rather break it up and say 3 or even 5 can be a lot.
Maybe 6.
Yeah,
Like-
but you forget. You really forget, and you get overwhelmed, and you get tired, and
Yeah, I think it's
Not fun.
when you see too many choices, it's not beneficial.
In one day.
I think it's best if you just narrow down to exactly what you're looking for, so you don't confuse yourself.
yeah.
You know what else I'll say too? The buyer agent shouldn't be showing you stuff just because you want to see it. The buyer agent should be fielding your inquiries and advising, like Justin said, advising, right? It's like, oh, hey, I saw this property. I want to go see it today. It's such and such. Okay, but didn't you say you needed parking?
Yeah.
Now you're looking at a condo with no parking.
Exactly.
Or the buyer agent should say, hey, didn't you say you want to be close to GO Train? Do you really want to go see this home in Brooklyn? Does that work for your criteria?
Mhm.
Right? So, the balancing of accommodating your requests with really funneling some people is important. And we've all had buyers that get, lost in the inventory, lost in the lights.
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes you just got to pull in the reins, right? And we believe in that too.
Yeah.
Statistically, the average Canadian Toronto buyer sees 10 to 12 homes and offers on 2 to 3 homes before actually buying a home. So that's just a statistic.
Marlon said
Thank you.
Sabrina, all
I
right.
knew that.
That's
that.
Lorelai's friend,
Oh, Lorelai.
Lorelai, and then
Thank
he
you.
said, but Justin seems awesome.
He is.
Everyone on the panel is great. Much needed info.
Hey, we'll take it. Thank you, Marlon.
Thanks for
Marlon.
joining.
So the last sort of major topic we have is government. So Canadian government wants you to buy homes, guys. When you go to college or university, the first day they give you a credit card, and if you don't have one, they'll give you a cell phone. Well, the minute you graduate with your student loan, etc., they want to pre-qualify you for a mortgage.
Yeah.
The one good thing about this is they try to make it easy for you. Homes are the sort of key turning the economy, right? Housing really is one of the most important, housing and construction is one of the most important parts of our economy. So they want you to do that. Government incentives. So does anybody want to just talk about some of the incentives?
Like first-time buyers.
For first-time home buyers.
You can borrow one of your RSPs.
Yeah, so first one, you can borrow penalty-free without issue $35,000, up to $35,000 from your RSP. So what to do now if you're not contributing to your RSP, thinking about buying a home in a couple years, max out your RSP if you can,
Yeah.
That's right.
right?
And you have 15 years to pay it back, but then they give you a leeway of 2 years.
The
So
first
it's
2
really
years.
17.
Yeah, so you have 17 years to pay back any money that you withdraw as a first-time home buyer from your RSP. Fun fact, you can withdraw it even if you're not a first-time home buyer, but that's a totally different conversation, right?
Yeah.
Other incentives.
Land transfer tax rebate. So you get If you're buying in Toronto, you get, I'm pretty sure, 100% of your municipal land transfer tax, and then you get a portion of your provincial land transfer tax. So,
Yeah, so I'm gonna just pick on Marlon. He was asking about some of the costs associated with buyer agent. One of the hard costs is when buying a home is land transfer tax.
Yeah.
And as a first-time home buyer, meaning you haven't owned property anywhere in the world, you get up to $2,000 rebated on your Ontario land transfer tax and $1,800 rebated on your Toronto land transfer tax, which is basically 100% of a $500,000 purchase. Any more benefits? Those are the two major ones,
those
Yeah.
are two majors.
right? RSP withdrawal and land transfer tax rebate. The government wants you to go out and buy. All right. Okay. Frontline stories. Does anybody have some juicy ones? Something fun, something interesting, something?
Fun.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell a story about my two buddies who decided to buy a townhouse at Town Center. So we bought this townhouse close to just after New Year's. So it was winter time. It was a very soft market, and this townhouse has been on the market for probably over 30 days. And it was like pretty beat up. It needed a lot of work, but my clients, you know, they have investor mindset, so they said, you know, at the right price, we can buy it and then renovate it and make it look good. So long story short, we beat the seller down to about, it was originally asking for 320. We got it down to 270. My clients put down, there's two of them, they put down 5%, which would be in turn like 13,500. So they each put down around 7,000 to buy this place. They renovated the place, put down another 20,000. So they each put down another 10,000. So they have $17,000 invested into this condo. About a year and a half later, the market went crazy, and they were like, you know what? If I can get 500,000 for this condo, I'll sell it. So me and Rav, we listed it. Day number 1, we got 500,000. So these guys literally made $200,000 in a year and a half off of a $17,000 investment. And I mean, I'm not saying it was a great find, and it was a time in the market where we were actually able to do that. But really, like, that's how little money you really need to make that much money, you know? So finding the right deal, you can replicate this story.
Yeah. That's a beautiful one. And
Yeah.
we've seen this, right? We've seen buyers be so, I don't think anyone has said the worst thing I ever did was buy my first home.
No.
No.
Right? And all of us in this room here are homeowners, and we can all say it's probably one of the best financial decisions we've ever made, right? And, you know, Toronto's one of these places where it's like, it is a conservative city. There's a speculation element, there's a rental element. Right now we've got COVID, but overall, we've got conservative banking, low crime rate, publicly funded education, universal health care, low interest rates, homes that are built within an Ontario building code, Tarion warranties. You know, we've got a lot of things in place to make sure that this key that turns the economy is well set up to win.
For
Right?
sure.
Any juicy stories? Anybody got any?
Juicy?
Juicy, anything, any interesting story, right? That a first-time home buyer can benefit from. Let me think about my side here. I mean, we've all talked about our own personal stories.
Yeah.
This is a good one. So I've got a courtesy cousin. She's young, all right? I won't say how young, but I've known, like, my dad used to teach her music. She'd come over to the house and she was about 7 years old. And she decided when she graduated, she came to one of these first-time home buyer events with her dad, that she was always going to contribute to her RSP, whatever she could with her part-time job during school. When she got her first job, she decided to buy a property. And she said, you know, maybe something I'll move into, but something I could use to rent out while I live at home. She bought property up at Burr Oak, which is Markham 9th Line area.
Yeah.
And it was just one of these stacked townhomes. Bought it under $300,000. Today she owns 4 properties. and it's only 7 years later. And she bought pre-construction with us, she bought resale with us, she has finally moved out and she's living on her own in a condo. And again, she's moved into 4 properties with very little of her own money and a lot of equity from that Burr Oak townhouse that she bought, that today is worth north of 600, and she has paid it down, right? So, you know what? Not easy for her to do, a little discipline required, but not that hard either, right? That was a good one, right? You know what, guys? Thank you. Thank you to everybody who has been chatting with us. Thank you to everybody who has been part of tonight. Anybody want to add any sort of closing statements before we wrap up tonight?
Feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. We're always here to answer.
Yes.
Other than that, get in the market. Don't be scared.
Yeah.
I mean, the sooner the better.
Yeah.
If you're looking to, have money to save up more, you got to look at it as like a bigger bank account that's going to pay you more interest.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a beautiful way of
That's
looking
how I
at
see
it.
it. And working at the bank, I would see that, you're getting that 1% or 1.25%,
Yeah.
where, you put it, even if you have to maybe pay a little bit out of pocket every month, you're still making more in the long run. So
Yeah.
if you can get in now, I definitely say do it.
Anything else to add?
And then one piece of advice for like the first time home buyers I always tell is, when you go out looking for places, try not to get emotionally attached, because it is a very emotional process and you could get caught up in your emotions and it could blind you to certain things. Like when I bought my first property at 18, but the place I actually live in right now is the first place that I've bought by myself. And I put 3 offers in. My first one being a triplex, and I got blown out the water. I lost by like 160,000.
Wow.
The second one, I put in an offer and I lost by 3,000, and that one kind of hurt my heart a little bit. But because I lost that one, I was able to finally buy the one that I actually live in right now, which is like my dream building. So everything always works out, and I always say, like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If you lose out on your first offer or your first 2 offers, don't get discouraged. Just
There's always
keep
going to be
going on.
another
There's
better
always going to
one.
be a better one
That's true.
that you will finally buy, or
Yeah.
be able to buy.
The emotional part is so taxing sometimes.
Yeah.
For the agent, for the buyer, we feel the pain too, right? It's like when you don't win in a multiple offer situation, everybody goes home drained,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Anything else to add? I'll share that it's very nerve-wracking to write a big check, and there's a million reasons to say wait, but more times than not, the people that we've helped have been happy to have pulled the trigger fast,
Yeah.
right? Not everyone's going to be like Ashley and C3 offer on the third and win that quickly.
But I was still nervous in that moment too. It's like that,
Mhm.
but it's a good
Me too,
nervous.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's the point, right? Like, it was good, right? And it was a big win, right? So for anybody who's looking to connect with us, it's all of our first names at connexusgroup.ca. Ravi at connexusgroup.ca, Ashley at connexusgroup.ca, Justin at connexusgroup.ca, Sabrina at connexusgroup.ca, or you can find us on Instagram at connexusgroup. You know what? This is the first time we've ever done something like this. We've done, first time home buyer events in the past, but usually we're actually sitting with people. Right now we're not. This is different, but you know what? It was fun still. I mean, it was nice to do this, and the market is ready right now for people to buy. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We are doing 2 more of these. The next one is called Pre-Con 101, and that's going to talk about pre-construction condos. We're going to talk about deposits, where to buy, what to watch out for, rescission periods, cooling off periods, all of the things related to pre-con, platinum access, VIP access, all these things, retargeting. We're going to talk about all that. And then the last one is called Get Rich Slow. And that's kind of a passion project of ours. We believe that real estate's a great place to build wealth. We practice what we preach. and getting on that property ladder, and then hopefully having multiple ladders that are all climbing, it can really change your financial legacy. So you can find out more about that on our Instagram or on our social or on our website. And you know what? Thanks so much for coming, guys.
Thank
you
you.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.